information. I think people need to understand that because this is what is going on right now. This is what we're seeing on the earth is like people are taking the old predictions that have already occurred back in that time and putting them into nowadays and thinking, oh, this is the end times. This is watch out for the great rapture, all that stuff. But what's so interesting is if you interpret it into what's really happening now, you could actually say there's going to be a rapture because those who are ascending will be here, and then there will be those that do not ascend into 5D that will be part of 3D and they are left behind. So,
Yeah.
in many ways, that is accurate because the cycle, oh, that's it. The cycle of humanity is the continual, like we have to go through the light and the darkness, the light and the darkness, the light and the darkness. That's what allows us to ascend and grow. Because if we don't have the extreme craziness as well as the love and the compassion and humanity coming together, if we don't have both, then we don't have the contrast to continue to create more light and love. They come together and we see the darkness as like what you were saying, like bad, and it feels bad, but like what you were
Yeah.
talking about earlier, like we're all on a different timeline. We're watching it from this timeline, they're watching it from that timeline, and that's what's going to be causing the fear is what timeline you're watching it from. If you've ascended and you're watching what is happening, you know what's going on. You're not going to be in fear. But if you're in the timeline of the fear, you're going to see the fear.
Well, and I think fear is a spectrum, right? It's like I don't think that I think there may come a time when there's those that choose to live in no fear.
Mm-hmm.
But I think in the time that we're at right now, that we live in a continuum of fear. So we have this amplification of fear over here,
Mm-hmm.
all the way to mostly living in love, but still having those moments of fear that bring us back into remembrance of love,
Yes.
right? So
Yes.
yeah, really interesting because you're talking about future events. And as you were talking about future events and kind of the upheaval that we're experiencing, but then I think we forget where we came from, and we forget sometimes the horrific circumstances
Mm-hmm.
of the past,
Yes.
especially living in the comfort that we live in America mostly. Like,
Right.
not everybody does, but mostly
Mm-hmm.
um mostly people live pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
Even people who are not living well are living better than most people live in third world countries, for example, right? So yeah, when you're talking about these future events, and I heard my guide saying it's shocking and gentle, and that's what we were talking about. It's like, yeah, it's going to be shocking because okay, because when you're talking about that, they basically whispered to me, "You humans want to make it worse than it's going to be.
Yeah.
You humans want to project this like it's going to, the whole world is going to turn into mush, and we're going
Mm-hmm.
to be walking through rubble." And we may, sometimes we may experience that. It's like I think it may have been Ann Tucker was talking about this idea that we hear about all these events happening all over the world, and sometimes we internalize that as if it's all happening to us, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not. So when we stay present where we are,
Mm-hmm.
we can live centered and send love, send that loving energy towards those that are going through challenges. But typically, as humans, we're not always in challenge.
Mm-hmm.
We're in cycles, which is what we were
Mm-hmm.
talking about, right? These
Yep.
cycles. So like shocking, but then if we've learned to center ourselves, if we've learned to connect to love, if we've learned to connect to our spiritual guidance, which is our divine center, which is
Mhm.
always connected to angels and
Mhm.
spirit guides and, you know, heaven or whatever terms you want to use. It can also be gentle.
Yeah.
Um, and we're going from this masculine, um, masculine hierarchy
Hmm.
to a more feminine. I've seen this over and over again as I've worked with people, channeled messages for people. They've shown me over and over again. They just keep um, emphasizing this divine center that's within all of us, and
Hmm.
that when we are here and we're
Hmm.
allowing that feminine side to be led, and
Hmm.
I'm not talking about men and women.
Oh, no. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm talking about the feminine nature
Yeah.
to be led. But you know, I've also been having this whole thought process about what is that, because I think that um for a long time in my, you know, my religious experiences, I believed that God had a plan for me and I had to figure out what God's plan was for me and I had to move forward. I
Hmm.
see it a little differently now. Now I see it as I had a plan for my soul that was developed before I came here.
Yes.
And when I am being led by my heart, when I'm being led by my divine center, when I'm giving the power here instead of here,
Hmm.
then I am following my soul's plan.
Yes.
And I don't have to look outside of myself because it's here.
Yes. Yeah.
I don't know. Now make sense of that, Angie.
No, it does. It makes sense. So there's a few things that I was hearing as you were talking, and it's interesting combining the understanding of the masculine and feminine energy, because within every human is masculine and feminine. We all hold masculine and feminine. And people may not realize this, but every energy center that we have in our body has a masculine or a feminine energy about it. So we move from our foundation of human, like us being a human, we're made to have an ego. And within that foundation, within our root, we have the ego of the masculine that keeps us protected, that keeps us grounded and safe within being a human on earth. Then we move into our sacral, which is a feminine energy, which connects us to other people. This is our creativity. This is our connection with love and, being able to build connection with other people. And then our confidence zone goes back into the masculine, which is all about me kind of like controlling. And then we move into the heart, which is the feminine again. So we are like, basically what is happening is the earth is going through the same process as the humans are, where we're all releasing the trauma of what we've built up in our, it's almost like we've like got like clogged arteries in our like masculine energy has become too polluted with the masculine within the energy of the earth and which within humanity, and it's become unbalanced. And the age of Pisces that we're moving out of was very focused on the masculine energy and the hierarchy and the control, but that's like that duality energy you were talking about with the great and the gentle both being there. So we're moving from that very like dominant energy that has been prominent into the Aquarius, which is air. And when you're moving into the air, like I even hear my guides speaking now, they're saying this is how you connect with the feminine, because it's the feminine is allowing and opening and nurturing and flowing, and we can spend time with do in our masculine energy, but then we miss out on the subtle changes around us within the wind, within the air, which within the whispers that might come our way. And so coming back into the energy of being centered within our heart and our love is opening us back up into the next basically cycle of human being a human, which is going to reconnect us with the divine truth of who we all are. And in basically it's a remembrance of the connection that we have. And is what's interesting is as we keep moving up through our energy field, we go back into masculine, feminine, masculine. And so it's not any surprise to me that in the age of Pisces, we made God a masculine, because if we're connecting with the masculine crown and we haven't healed all the other trauma that we've been building up, like that clogged artery, we need to get in and clear all that out, so we can flow more easily and more gently and more kindly. And it doesn't feel so harsh on our bodies and harsh on the earth and harsh with each other.
Mm,
And we're
yeah.
opening up the vessel of that life force within us, that blood vessel, the allowance of moving more, gently, but between everything, between each other, between our connection with the earth. Like we're even seeing that shifting where people, I mean, I have been hiking for at least 10 plus years. And when I first started, nobody was there. I never encountered another human on the trails. Within the last 2 to 3, 4 years, it's like they are packed with people. And it's because they don't realize that this is what is happening. We're coming back into the nurturing atmosphere of Mother Earth, and we're
I
working.
love that. Uh,
It's amazing to watch. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that aren't aren't consciously aware of that shift that has happened, but I've seen it so clearly. And it's because we're coming back to that, like, not only like helping to heal that root of our who we've been for the last 2,500 years. We're grounding that deeper into our earth chakra, down into Mother Earth, so that we work with the the basically nurturing energy that the earth provides us, so that we can become more open and connected with not just the feminine energy of the earth, but the feminine energy of us being a human, which then allows our energy to expand and open, because we're not so dense, we're not so heavy. Because anytime you're wanting to listen to your intuition, you have to allow your energy to expand. We're, as humans, we can't really clearly hear our higher self or our spirit team without expanding our energy into opening our self to a different dimension even. um this is why people struggle to know, am I hearing from my guides? Because they're not sitting in that feminine energy, in the stillness, because the wind is gentle, it's just coming through.
and what's so interesting, and as I've taught people, I've realized that a lot of times when we think about connecting with angels or connecting with our spirit guides or connecting, with all that, we're kind of looking out like, how do I hear them? But
Mhm.
really it's coming in, it's
Yes,
knowing yourself
yes,
that helps you hear because
yes.
it's subtle. And
It,
so when you really come into who you are and you feel the subtleness of your own energy, then you can feel the influence of those positive influences of
yes,
angels, spirit guides, and your own soul speaking to you.
yes.
Like it's not out here, it's here.
Absolutely, I love
And so and
this.
and when you were
True.
talking about this balance, I heard we're coming into authenticity.
Yes.
We're moving from the programming, hopefully, because I spend a lot of time, um, a lot of time thinking about my own programming and thinking about, okay, am I reacting from a place of this is the way I learned to
Mm-hmm.
show up, or
Mm-hmm.
am I responding in a way that's authentic and loving and from a heart-centered place?
Mm-hmm.
Because I guarantee you 90% of the time I'm coming from a program place. Like that's
Mm-hmm.
just science.
Right.
Science says that,
Right.
that's the efficiency of our
Mhm.
being is that we will always just want to, okay, this is the way we did it before, this is the way we're going to do it again. Like, how many times do we get on the road and we just
Yep.
turn right? Because we
Yep.
always turn right, and we get
Yeah.
halfway down the road and go, oh, wait, this time I needed to turn left, because we're
Yes.
so
Yes.
programmed. So it just being aware of how programmed we are,
Yeah.
and then allowing the, coming in. That's why meditation, pondering is so crucial, is because it gives us that space
Mm-hmm.
to come within and
Mm-hmm.
feel the peace
Mm-hmm.
is at the center of everything. No matter what is going on out here,
Mm-hmm.
there's this peace that's at the very center. And so it's like we're moving from programmed masculine energy, and nothing negative. I know there's been so much negative
Right.
spoken about the masculine energy, and
Right.
I don't,
It
it's
has
not
its
negative.
role. It's
There's
important.
divine masculine, there's divine feminine.
Yes.
We've overemphasized the intellect, the masculine,
Mm-hmm.
and now we come into balance by recognizing the spiritual, the etheric, the the flowing,
Mm-hmm.
of being in this feminine space. And that's what creates authenticity. It's
Yes.
when we can have that balance. One of my favorite books is Sensitive is the New Strong,
Mm-hmm.
Anita Morjani. So she had a near-death experience, and she was taught in her near-death experience that that the reason that she had the illness that she had was because she was just trying to please everyone around her. She came from a very interesting background. And there was just a lot of different programs coming at her, and there was just absolutely no way
Mm-hmm.
that she could live each one of those, because they were in conflict with each other, which created a lot of conflict in her, which created dis-ease in
Mm-hmm.
her being, which led her to a near-death experience.
Yeah.
Insensitive is the New Strong, she talked about this, the identity versus awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of times we associate identity or ego, and I hesitate to use the word ego because that's has a negative connotation, but it's just like that knowing of who we are and just being centered in who we are.
Mm-hmm.
That identity or ego is a lot of times associated with the masculine, and awareness of humanity, of relationships, of the people around us is a lot of times associated with the feminine.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's unbalance either way. And because society in general has programmed over here on the masculine side, women have really suffered. But honestly, men have too,
Yeah.
because it's just all unbalanced. I mean, that's the bottom line. It's unbalanced. And so I just loved her description, and her, maybe it's just the way my brain works, but I loved her description of that, and it helped me to see it so clearly. And I think our human brains like a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of structure and a little bit of visual,
Mm-hmm.
um, to go with the thoughts and the concepts.
Yeah.
I would love to ask you this, because if someone's listening to this and they're like, what is 5D? If
Yeah.
they're brand new,
Right.
I would love to hear your description of 5D compared to
Oh
3D.
goodness. Oh goodness. Okay. Okay. So actually it goes really well with this conversation. So the 3D and is there's within the element of the universe is made up of different energy. We're all one energy combined, but we're all a different frequency. Even my frequency is different than yours, even if it is a similar type of frequency. And this is why we can have such diversity in our human body. From our voices are all different. if somebody calls me, like back in the day before we had caller ID, like if somebody I knew or loved called me, they wouldn't have to say this is so and so. I would know by the tone of their voice. This is why we all have different eyes. We all have different fingerprints. That's how diverse the universe is. But we're all human. We're all one. We're all the same in many ways. We all need air to breathe. We all need, food to live. So that's how diverse the universe. If you were to take just the human understanding of it and expand that outward, that's how energy works. Like everything's one, but it's all has its own different frequency. And so if you were to zoom out from the elements that we live in now, like my spirit team has given me visions of the different dimensions of the universe at times where they have said that this particular dimension that we live in, and what's interesting, it's not the lowest dimension. There are other dimensions that are within this one that is a little even more dense than what we live in. But we can't comprehend that from our human understanding. Like we can't really comprehend any of this from our human understanding.
Yeah,
So
it
to
is
try to
hard.
yeah, so try to break it down into how we can comprehend this is we live in a very heavy frequency. It's almost like if you were to look at like an orchestra, you would look at like the bass and the drums, and that's like the heavy beat of a song. Like that's the part you feel, and so we come here and we feel dense, we feel emotions, we feel each other's energy, we feel trauma, we feel pain. So we're in the atmosphere of density, of feeling, and we actually choose to come here to experience that because it helps our soul to grow and expand. Now, as
Yeah,
we
and in that density, it feels like it's just really easy to not only have our own emotions that get amplified, but also to entangle with other emotions. Like it
Yes.
just, yeah, very
And
much. Yeah.
that's what you were just saying with us kind of all being in that masculine energy. We were in a mimic. Like it's interesting that this has came up for me several times in the last week. Even a friend sent me a video the other day on Instagram about how we have been mimicking each other. We follow the leader, we follow the crowd, we come into the earth and we're like, oh, this is how you be a human, this is the way you act, this is where you go to school, this is who you spend your time with. And so we start to mimic the culture and the energy and the atmosphere around us. And then we lose that authentic connection with our higher truth, our soul, basically. And so what is happening is we have been in this dense energy for very, very long time. Like I would say probably billions of years. And the earth is at a point where like many of us souls are that are having our awakening, we're waking up and we're starting to see things differently. We've outgrown the experience, we've outgrown the density of the 3D. So for our soul to continue to expand and for that universe to continue to grow bigger and bigger, we have to come into a different level of understanding and learning to continue the collective consciousness of what we would say God or source energy is to continue to expand in itself. So we are source energy experiencing itself in this form. Now, those of us that are ascending into what we would call 5D, we have to go through a period of um deconstructing and like you were talking about the programming, how you're starting to notice the programming, becoming enlightened and awake to the way we've been taught to act as humans. So we're starting to basically clear out all that old energy and that trauma that we have been collecting for many, 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 many years. And this is why we have these karmic cycles that have come through the earth, that you see these same patterns happening over and over and over. And you're like, well, why are you trying the same thing over and over when it didn't happen the first time? Well, because you haven't been aware of it. You haven't seen the pattern. You have thought it's going to work one of these times if I just keep doing it over and over, but then you keep hitting your head against the wall and it keeps happening again and again. Now we're being like, wait, that's not working. Let's try something new. So we have consciously woken up to our patterns. And this is when we're starting to release the karma of the 3D energy. And so there are those of us on earth that are a part of that awakening, that is clearing out the karmic trauma here on earth. And then there are souls on the other side that are working on that side to help clear out the karmic energy. And we are working in conjunction with each other, where those of us that are doing our healing here on earth to help us ascend and lighten in our energy are helping the loved ones and those spirits that have carried trauma and karmic energy with them to the other dimensions clear their energy out, so that when they come back to repeat a cycle, they're not repeating the same one. Where we're bringing awareness to that pattern. So
Yeah,
we're
love that.
not we're not necessarily in 5D yet.
Yeah.
We're working towards getting to 5D, and we're actually, a lot of people are kind of in this middle stage of what you could call like a 4D energy, where you're you might feel a little out of place. Like you're not, like, I don't belong here. I don't know, like this is uncomfortable, because I still feel the collective impact of the energy of the 3D, but I also feel this new energy coming in of this enlightenment and awakening, and this, like, it feels blissful and joyful and loving. And so we're trying to find this balance, but in order for us to keep moving through that, we have to keep seeing the pattern of the 3D so we can release that. Now,
Yeah,
this,
because we still have to pay our bills, we still have to put food on the table, we still have to, pay
yep.
the mortgage or the rent. That
Mhm.
is still part of the density of what we're experiencing. But when I think about 5D, it's like heaven on earth. It's like it's bringing, and so we do. I love what you said about the 4D, because it's like we're kind of, when we become aware and and I don't want to say efforting, but when we're using the power of our intention and the power of purpose to seek heaven on earth, to seek the 5D, which is that, bringing divine love here
Mhm.
and now.
Mhm.
And you have those moments. I don't know about everybody else, but I certainly have those moments where I'm like, I am very much in 3D right now. I am very much in
Mhm.
the yuckiness
Mhm.
of what's happening here and now. And
Mhm.
certainly we're seeing the impact of that. There's elections happening all over the world.
Right.
More elections this year than I think has been in years and years. Like
Right. Like a
50% of
hundred.
countries are,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
are going through elections right now. And I know in the US it's very divided, very divisive. I choose not to, as much as possible, not to engage in it,
Mhm.
because I think what we think is that when we're fighting against something we don't want to happen, we think that we're helping, but
Right.
what we're doing is we're putting more fear, more anger, more negative energy into the system that we don't want.
Right.
And we're actually feeding the monster, if you will.
Exactly. Yep.
And so when we can, separate from that, and that's why it, meditation can be so impactful, because in those moments, I can be peaceful, I can be calm, I can be centered, I
Mhm.
can be focused on love for myself, sending love to others, and I can feel that, and I can experience that. And
Mhm.
when you experience that, you want more of it.
Yeah.
And you want more of that in your day-to-day life. In fact, I think we had a question about that. Somebody was saying, "How do I
Yes.
bring what I
I
feel in
actually,
meditation
yeah. How do I bring
into."
the calmness of meditation into my everyday life was one of the questions. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
I think just like meditation is a practice, bringing that calmness into your everyday is a practice. But
Mhm.
one of the things practically that I've found is really helpful as far as that goes is anytime that I feel triggered, because we will, like
Mhm.
the way I see it and the way I tell people is anytime you feel triggered, it's just a sign that there's something else that needs to be healed. There's
Yep.
nothing wrong with you. It's,
Right.
it's okay to be
You're not
triggered.
going backwards. You're not doing anything
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
when we were talking about cycles, right? Like it's
Uh-huh.
cycles, right? And
Yeah.
so we may be triggered by something that we were triggered for before, and we thought, "Oh, I thought I was over that. I thought it was good." But you're just um it's just touching on another piece to be healed, right? So anytime I feel that trigger, or anytime I feel unbalanced or distressed, one of the things that's really helpful and can be done anywhere is to just pause and take deep breaths, like making sure your belly is rising and
Mhm.
taking that deep breath, and it physically calms your system. And when
Mhm.
your system is calm, then your brain is clear, your
Yes.
heart's clear, your brain is clear, and it takes you ever so slightly back into that meditative state
Mhm.
to allow you to make better decisions, to allow you to, but it's the idea that we can just always be balanced and always be in a meditative state
Mhm.
24 hours in our day, I think we're setting ourselves up for disappointment.
Right. Yeah, we're not there yet. We're not
Yeah, we're not
capable
there
of
yet.
that. Humanity's not. I mean, we can spend most of our time there, but it's not possible. It's interesting. I was thinking about earlier or this weekend, I had a client I was going to go see, and the night before, and I always start to feel people's energy before I start to meet with them. And it was really interesting. Like my world is pretty calm most of the time. Like, since I spend a lot of time in meditation, I kind of just, stay I work to stay connected to my intuition quite often. But for some reason, things started to appear in my world that were very chaotic and very intense and very scary, like
Mm,
like even like social media posts were like scary things were popping up, and I was like, what is this? Like, where is this coming from? And I, automatically I'm like, where is my energy off? Am I attracting that? Like, what is going on? And so I kind of just set aside and was like, I need a center. I need to go back to my breath. So I set all that aside, was like, this is not me. And then the next morning it started happening again, like chaos, things were going wrong. And I was like, what is happening? Like, what's going on with my energy? And then I realized I was about to walk into a situation with this client and these people that were feeling that all the time. They were feeling
mm,
chaos and the heaviness of their life. And it was me picking up on the collective energy of their feeling attached to all these other humans that are there around. And it was impacting me. And so I have learned over the years that I have to be able, like you were saying, getting to know your own energy. I have to know the difference. And when that switch happens, am is it something I've been engaging in that I've brought it on, or am I picking up on the collective energy around me? And I think many of us that are attempting to calm our nervous system, meditate, breathe, stay grounded, that are moving into the more the 4D energy, I think that we want to internalize and take things in as ours when they're not. They're just the energy we're picking up around us. And so we have to keep ourselves centered enough to understand that there's the collective energy and then there's my energy.
yeah,
And when you
yeah.
stay centered, you can tell the difference and when that happens.
Yeah, I agree. And it's, we've all, I think, all had experiences where you walked in someplace and you could just feel the good feelings, or you walk in someplace and you can just feel like, oh, what just happened? It
Yeah.
just feels like just somebody must have just yelled and screamed and slammed the door
Mhm.
and ran out. Like it's not happening, but like, boy, it feels like it's still happening, right?
Mhm.
So we've all had those experiences where we've felt that even though, looking around, we can't necessarily. I remember years ago walking into this doctor's office, and as soon as I walked in, I was like, what? There is some weird energy here. And literally 5 minutes later, there were two ladies behind the counter fighting, like arguing with each other. But that
Yeah,
wasn't happening when I walked through the door.
but
But
you felt
within
it before.
minutes,
Hmm.
it was not only just the energy, but you could see the conflict, like it was physically happening.
Hmm.
But I think one of the things that's really helpful for us to remember is that whatever we're bringing, we are influencing.
Yes.
And love has, and I also think it's really important for us to remember that love has a much greater effect
Hmm.
than does the negative energy. And I think it's really easy right now to feel like negativity is winning
Hmm.
because that's what media portrays, because
Right.
that's how they run their
Entertain.
business.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I call news newsertainment. I'm like, I choose not to
Yeah.
participate, but it's just recognizing that when we consciously nurture our own love, our own self-love,
Hmm.
and people think, oh, that's selfish. It is not selfish.
No.
I'm not talking about vanity. I'm not talking about unbalanced pride. I'm
Hmm.
not talking about, being egotistical. I'm
Hmm.
talking about loving ourselves,
Hmm.
just like we would love a friend, just like we would love a family member, just like we would love someone outside of ourselves. When we can give ourselves that same love, we have more love to give, more
Yes.
compassion to give, and that influences the people around us, even the people that we're not talking to.
Absolutely. 100%. You're right. I love what you said to um light and darkness when we last talked. You said darkness does not um reflect. Light does.
Yeah.
And so when we think
Light
about,
penetrates, but darkness
right,
doesn't, right?
right.
If you have a dark room and you have a room with the light on and you open the door between the two,
Hmm. The light will
the
over.
light influences the dark room. You
And
don't
so,
have the darkness influencing
yes,
the light room.
that
Yeah.
is what is happening on the earth right now. But we haven't, because we've been in the dark, we've been participating in it. Now that we've rose above that, as like we're shifting and we're releasing the trauma of that dense energy, we're seeing it now, and then it impacts us when we see it. Before we were in it, we didn't even know it was impacting us. We were part of it. And that's why even things like what you're saying, like I don't participate in watching the news and things, a lot of people are refusing to engage in things that make them feel bad because they're noticing, wait, I that doesn't feel good. Why am I doing that? Why am I putting myself in that? And that's the old way of doing it. That's that pattern that we've been stuck in. And it's really interesting. The 3D world uses fear as entertainment because that is what that energy is all collectively stuck in. And most things are ran out of fear because of fear of not having what I need, fear of, you know, who's going to help me, like everything is kind of like connected to fear in some way in the 3D because it's so dense. And now we're out of that, we're like, we're not going back to that. I don't want to participate in something that makes me feel bad. And so
Well,
you're
and it's even using our autonomy to make choices like that, to say, this doesn't feel good. Even if all of my friends want to go to the horror movie, I don't, it,
right.
that doesn't sound appealing to me at all, you
Hmm.
know? So it's going from, and in fact, at one point when you were talking, I wrote down that we're moving from um, authoritative leadership to self-leadership. Like we 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 get to choose to lead self outside of the system. And I'm not talking about, if there's laws, like do whatever you want. That's not what I'm talking about. It's
Mm,
like being centered in who we are so we can make choices for our own
yes.
life and not participate in the negativity that's happening outside of us and choosing not to engage in that, choosing not
Right.
to entangle
Right.
in that system. I
Right.
went after, and we don't have time to go into the whole story, but when I was going through significant grief and trauma,
Mhm.
I was watching some pretty dark shows. I was watching shows about addiction. I was watching shows about, hoarders. I was watching, like, I was drawn to that because it resonated
Mhm.
with where my vibration was.
Yes.
That doesn't sound appealing to me at all right
Yeah.
now.
No.
And and it's okay. It's okay, like this is part of our human experience, is to learn and grow. Like
Mm,
we all we think of, certain peoples, like the Buddhas, the Jesuses,
mhm,
we think of certain people, even like Mother Teresa. We think of them as being these amazing, beautiful beacons of light who
mhm,
came to this earth to show us how to live.
mhm.
But and it's true. I'm not, discounting that.
Right.
I'm not saying
Right.
that that's not true.
Right.
But I've come to realize that we were all beacons of light
Mhm.
that came here, that we all took on density when we took on this body.
Yes.
When we went from spirit to body, we
Yes.
took on the density of this experience to
Mhm.
learn and grow. And we're all learning
Mhm.
to strengthen that spirit to be able to self lead the
Mhm.
body in this 3D experience, to create a 5D experience, to create a vibrational experience of love
Mhm.
and compassion and peace and all those things that we equate with, Yeshua, Buddha, Mother Teresa, and other people that admire,
Mhm.
we admire, and we want to be like, that we
Mhm.
long to be like.
Mhm.
I'm curious, what other question there? I think there was a couple other questions.
Yeah, we have a few. I don't know if these are all going to be able to be answered at once, but that calmness of the like adding calmness of your meditation to every day was one of them. And then we had some questions about communicating with spirits, and then timeline shifts and glitches in the matrix, and then
Okay.
open contact with aliens or other beings.
Wow.
Um,
Yes. Good questions.
Healing past life trauma and karma. So those are all really good questions. And
Yeah. Maybe we should tackle them 1 week at a time, because those are,
yeah, yeah. And
because
I'm
we could
guessing
spend a
we could
whole
just,
hour talking about
right,
each one of those,
just
right?
one. That's what I'm guessing. We could just channel on one of those at a time. But do you want to do a channeling before we end of like a collective one
Sure.
for we could pick one of these topics or we could see what wants to come through?
Yeah. What I'm feeling drawn to is just answering that question about, how do we bring our meditation, and before I channel a message, I would just say that the continued practice is worth it.
Yes.
It's just worth it. And I'm going to be completely honest here. Do I meditate every single day? No.
Yeah. No.
Um, are there some days where I lay in bed at night and go, I didn't meditate today, and I take 5 minutes and I just, quiet myself, and that's my meditation for the day? Yes. I don't think we need to think of it as I got to sit in a
Mhm.
certain pose for an hour at a time. 5 minutes a day is going to make a difference.
Yes.
5 minutes a day of journaling and connecting with yourself is going to make a difference.
Mhm.
The little things add up, and they really do make a huge difference.
Mhm.
Just a little background. In 2010, I had what I would call a spontaneous emotional healing. And at that point, I found an old journal. At that point, I started journaling and I started connecting. I've always felt this connection. I've had experiences where I've woken up in the middle of the night. There's a full-on conversation in my head with spirit guides. I didn't know what to call it at the time.
Mm,
I was just like, oh, this is, God talking to me or the Holy Spirit talking to me. But you know, I've had those experiences over the years, but then in 2010, after I had this spiritual and emotional healing, I started journaling pretty regularly, like
mhm.
almost daily. And that's been 14 years ago. What year are we in?
That's crazy.
2024.
Yeah.
14 years ago. And so last year I discovered that not only could the information started coming in a lot faster. I had to go from writing in a journal to typing out because I would ask questions and I would just listen and I'd write whatever I heard. And last year, almost a year ago now, I discovered that I could verbally give these people would have questions. I could verbally give these answers for other people
Mhm,
and yeah, so it's just been a development. And I had no idea when I started journaling in 2010 that this is where
mhm.
this was leading. I
Right,
I didn't understand that. I was just doing what my soul felt drawn to do. And
right,
that's why it's so important. We just allow our soul to just
right.
we're always moving in the right direction. Like as long as we're being authentic,
Mhm,
as best as we can, as long as we're doing what feels correct for us as often as we can, that's
mhm,
what keeps us on the trail. So
mhm,
what I'm saying is I'm feeling drawn to talk about this whole thing about, staying centered as much as we can. I actually received messages this week myself about living in the 5D now in
mhm.
a 3D world. So let's see what they have to say about that, shall we? Or do you have
Yeah.
any other question you've
No, that sounds good to me. I never know what's gonna like if when I channel, I never know what's gonna come out. So they could
Yep.
just say whatever.
Yeah, it feels like that's the direction we're gonna go, but
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
yeah, yeah. We'll just do
Okay.
it. So
Let me just take a couple deep breaths and now is the time. Now is the time that you're feeling to move into your spiritual being. It is the time to be centered in yourself. It is the time to find that peace, that calm, that love that lives within the center of your being, which is always, always, always connected to the heavenly realm, to the angelic realm, to the realm of your spirit guides, to the realm of your spirit being because you are a spirit being. You are a spirit being who has always and eternally been connected to the divine, to the higher realm, to the higher being. It is that causes you in this 3D experience and the density of this earth to feel a little uncomfortable, to feel a little like a fish out of water, because in many ways you are. You are in a density and an experience and a plane that is not natural to your spirit being. This is not a natural place for you to be, but you chose to be here, and we emphasize that you chose this experience. You not only chose this experience, you not only chose to come here, but you came here with a plan, with a map, with an understanding of your pathway through this lifetime, through this particular incarnation, through this particular experience in your particular place with your particular name. You chose the map, you chose the experience. It is much like when you travel and you choose what sites you're going to see. And you may go to those sites and you may have a different experience than you expected, but you went to those sites knowing that that's where you wanted to go. You didn't know exactly what your experience was going to be there because you had not been there before. But before you went on your trip, you made decisions about the cities, the sites, the places that you were going to visit. And so you followed that plan, you followed that map, not knowing exactly what those experiences were going to be. And that's much like your experience now. Before you came with a life plan. You came with a intention, with a purpose to be here to you selected specific experiences that you wanted to experience, not knowing beforehand exactly what it was going to look like, exactly what it was going to feel like. And from that spiritual perspective, from that place of being a spirit being and choosing a 3D experience, choosing an earth plane experience, you do not have full understanding of what it's going to be like to take that trip in this experience. You're looking at it from here, you're experiencing it from here. And so many times it feels again like you're a fish out of water. It feels again, taking you back to the idea of traveling. It feels sometimes like when you go on a trip and you're expecting to go to certain cities and you're driving from city to city, site to site, and you get a flat tire and you have to adapt and change and do things differently because you weren't expecting the flat tire. You did not understand fully what you were going to experience here because it is a different experience than you've ever had before. And so it's okay. It's okay. The experiences that you're having are the experiences that you chose.
Mhm.
And it's okay that it doesn't always feel comfortable. And it's okay that you don't always feel completely centered and peaceful and calm and love. This is the experience that you came to experience. You're learning and growing. Be patient and loving with yourself. Be compassionate. As you love yourself, as you show compassion for yourself, you experience more and more of that internal love. And as you learn, even in your errors, even in your mistakes, to show love and compassion for yourself, you grow your heart center. You grow your heart center, which gives you the capacity to be in peace and love more and more often. And
Mhm.
so we bring this message of love and compassion to you. We bring this message, this frequency of peace and calm and love to you with all love, with all compassion. Know that you are loved. We are not judging you. We are not judging your experience. We are here to help. We
Mhm.
love you. We
Mhm.
love you.
Mhm. Beautiful. Yeah,
Mm,
so good.
interesting. Yeah.
So good.
Mm,
Yeah. There's just like sometimes after you just hear a message, there's just like this calmness of like, you just want to breathe it, breathe in
yeah.
it. Yeah, so good.
Yeah, I love that. It's afterwards, it's like in the moment, like I'm hearing what they're saying. I'm conscious. It's not
Mhm.
that I'm not conscious of what's happening, but if you were to ask me right now what they said, I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
well, I know there was something about being here and coming here
Mhm.
and and a
Yes.
life plan
Yes.
and relating it to travel, but
Yeah.
I couldn't tell you
Yeah.
exactly what was said.
Yeah.
It's
That's
just
how it works for me too. Completely. Absolutely. So good.
yeah, so good.
Well, I'm trying to see if there's anything else that's trying to come through before we end.
I'm
Um,
curious. I know that a lot of times I'm just feeling to ask this question. I'm just wondering if your guides have anything to add to the idea of self-leadership,
hmm,
or do you feel called a different direction?
hmm. Let me see. Let me see what
Okay.
they, if there's anything there for that in particular. Mhm. Divine ones. The energy of guidance is always present and with you. The energy of love is always prominent in the atmosphere, trying to attempt to guide you towards the truth and the enlightenment of your own awareness and your own abilities to see yourself. When we tap into the collective energy and we feel into what humans believe leadership is, we feel an energy of one above the other. But you must understand that as we look at the collective energy, we do not see one above other. We see one. We see one energy. We see one collective. We see one uh, element working in alignment to bring forward the missions that you all decided to come. It may appear that each person is on a different mission, but the reality of the collective is that you work as one energy to ascend into the truth and consciousness of your true one frequency that you hold within yourself. By one moving into their highest self and the frequency of their intuitive gifts, it gives permission for the other to begin to move in theirs. So, as we speak to humanity about being self led or coming into the leadership of the one, we must understand that this one is the collective energy of working together and allowing each to be seen and heard and loved in their own frequency without the need to change that frequency for them. The self love and the self compassion that you have in moving forward in your life is how you will begin to be the leader in your own present reality. The intuitive gifts that we are often guiding you with are what we call the subtle energy shifts in the atmosphere. And the more you allow those subtle energy shifts to move you and change direction for you, the more that you flow, just as the wind flows as one and the ocean flows as one, the collective energy flows as one. And so we are moving humanity out of a understanding of leadership as one above the other and one as controlling another into a collective harmony of one being in love with the others, where we can work together to allow the ascension to move forward within the guidance of the wisdom that is already held within each soul that is on earth at this time. All of those who are meant to be a part of this new earth are here to be guiding it. So, in many ways, every one of you are healers and leaders, because in order for the earth to ascend, you all must walk in your purpose in the light in which you hold within you. When you allow yourself to be seen in the authentic energy of your truth and the frequency that you hold within you, you can begin to radically change the atmosphere around you. And that is what we would call leadership. When you allow your authentic self, the energy of love, to be prominent in all of the actions that you take, whether that is in the everyday events that you frequently have to do. We understand many humans are struggling with their positions right now within what you might call jobs or needs that you have to do every day. But we want you to understand that these are simply tasks that have been assigned for the humans to understand what it's like to be in dense energy. If you did not have the dense things to do, you would not need to be in the dense energy. But as we shift you into a higher collective consciousness and we release some of these tasks and things for you to do, we must remember to help you, and you must remember to be guided by the intuitive collective energy of love. And that is what we would like to call true leadership. True leadership is a guidance of the heart. It's a guidance of the frequency of love, the original form of your creator and maker coming back into itself, the self-realization, the self-awareness, the understanding that you are all one energy, and that when you are divided, you are unable to be who you were created to be. We are bringing you back into this as humanity is awakening and ready, and we are assisting in this next phase. And you will begin to see it happening within the next 2 to 3 years, and we will give you the guidance that you need, but you must be aware of your heart. You must be connected to your heart. And in this way, we encourage you to take more time to be present with your own energy and this subtle changes that you will feel. We also want to encourage you to release any fear or anxiety around one person being more important than the other. We all have an assignment, as well as us working with you and you with us. So when you work together and you understand that the assignment that you have is for the purpose of the collective and not necessarily to change anybody else, it is all going to change the atmosphere and frequency. You stepping into your truth will allow those around you to step into theirs. And that is what leadership is. It is all in one frequency and synchronicity and a symphony of sound that is beautiful from our perspective. And we love you and we guide you and we assist you with this. And we want you to know that you are always loved and supported as you work through this ascension. We love you. We love you. We love you.
Beautiful.
There you go.
Beautiful. Yeah. If there's one thing to take away from our conversation today, and from the messages that came through, is just this recognition that we are never disconnected from love and guidance. We are always connected to love and guidance. We may not always be aware we are connected, but when we bring our awareness to it, we can trust that we are being
Yes.
loved and guided.
Yes.
Love
So
it.
beautiful. So beautiful. Yes. Well, I enjoyed this conversation and I can't wait till we have the next one.
Sounds good. Fun.